Chapter 1, in which Crowner John is harangued by his wife. The last thing that Sir John de Wolfe needed this morning was another argument with his wife. He arrived back at his home in Martin's Lane at about the 10th hour, as the nearby cathedral bell was tolling for terce, sext, and nones. He left his great stallion Odin with a farrier opposite, then trudged across the narrow road and bent his black head to enter the front door. As he slumped onto the bench in the vestibule to pull off his dusty riding boots, a strident voice called out from the hall to his left. "John? Is that you, John?" Suppressing an urge to reply that it was the Archangel Gabriel come to whisk her up to heaven, de Wolfe yelled back that it was indeed himself, and that he was hungry enough to eat a small horse, shoes and all. Before he could summon up the will to go in to meet Matilda, a large hound loped up the covered passage that led from the backyard to the vestibule, and laid its slobbering mouth affectionately across his knees. As he fondled old Brutus's ears, Mary the housemaid appeared, and keeping a wary eye on the inner door to the hall, planted a dry pair of lips quickly on his cheek. "She's in a funny mood today, Sir Crowner," she whispered. Mary was a handsome, dark-haired woman of about 25, and John felt that he would probably not survive without her. Mary kept him fed and in clean garments, while his wife was seemingly oblivious of his basic needs. She spent most of her time in church. "Matilda's always in a funny mood," he growled, as the servant handed him a pair of soft house shoes. "Her brother was here earlier this morning," she murmured. "They seemed to be hatching some plot, but I couldn't hear what they said." She threw his grey wolfskin cloak over her arm and moved towards the covered passage back to her domain in the yard. "I'll beat the dust out of this. Do you need anything to eat now?" The coroner shook his head. "Just a jug of ale. I broke my fast in Crediton soon after dawn." He had ridden the day before to Rackenford, a village up towards Exmoor, to hold an inquest on a youth crushed by a collapsed wall. He had left there too late to get back to Exeter, before the gates were closed at curfew, and had had to spend the night in the hall of a manor near Crediton. As she was about to vanish down the passage, Mary put her head round the corner for a last word. "From what I heard, she's on again about you being away so much." De Wolfe groaned as he rose stiffly to his feet. Matilda was like a dog worrying at a bone, with her never-ending complaints about his frequent absences, even though it was she who last September had nagged him to take this damned job as Devon's county coroner. Now he lifted the heavy iron latch on the inner door and went between the draught screens into the hall. His house was a tall, narrow building, one of 3 side-by-side in Martin's Lane, which led from Exeter's main street into the cathedral close. Opposite was the farrier's forge and stable, which was between the pine end of an alehouse in the High Street and St. Martin's Church. The gloomy hall into which he now stepped occupied most of the house, rising up to the smoke-darkened roof timbers. 2 shuttered windows faced the street, with oiled linen screens across the inside which let in a little light. Though most of the house was of wood, the back wall was of stone. De Wolfe had had that built a few years back, to allow a large hearth to be constructed with a new-fangled conical chimney to take the smoke outside. Before, the choking fumes from a hearth pit in the middle of the floor had had to find their way out through the eaves. The other walls were hung with sombre tapestries to cover the rough planks, and just behind the screens his chain-mail hauberk and round iron helmet were strung from iron hooks, alongside his battered shield, with its emblem of a snarling wolf's head in black on a white ground.